All right, so let's talk about something I think we can all relate to, right? Like that ache you get from sitting at a desk all day. Tight hips, stiff back, that kind of nagging pain in your neck and shoulders. Ugh.
hmm
We've all been there.
Yeah, for sure.
But, we're not here to like bash sitting or anything.
Right.
It's more about what happens when we're, stuck in those same positions for hours and hours with like terrible posture.
And the thing is, those aches and pains, they don't just magically disappear when you clock out,
Don't
right?
tell me about it.
They can really mess with how you move and how flexible you are, even like your energy levels when you're not at work.
Yeah, so it's not just about being comfortable at your desk. This is about your overall well-being.
Definitely.
And to help us unpack all of this, we're actually doing a deep dive into another podcast episode that has some really, really practical advice on this topic.
Okay.
So our mission today is to pull out those key takeaways and turn them into things you can actually start doing today to feel better.
Sounds good.
All right, so this episode, they really get into strategies for desk workers to like stay pain-free, right?
Yeah.
And they emphasize it's not actually sitting that's the problem. It's more about the, prolonged sitting we do with like the worst possible posture.
Yeah, and over time, that can create like these muscle imbalances that really affect how comfortable you are and how well you can move, and not just at the office, but everywhere.
Exactly. So first up, they talk about workspace optimization.
Okay.
And I'm curious, what really stood out to you in this section? Because it's not just about like dropping a ton of money on some fancy ergonomic chair, right?
Yeah, absolutely not.
Like they do mention those basic things, like adjusting your chair so your feet are flat on the floor. But they really emphasize lumbar support and how that impacts, the natural curve in your spine. So lumbar support, that little curve in your lower back, like why does that matter so much? I feel like a lot of people just skip over that part.
Yeah, well, if you're slouching or you're sitting without that proper support, you're putting so much strain on your muscles and those discs in your spine.
Okay.
Think about it. Those discs are like your shock absorbers. And if you're constantly like compressing them without giving them the support they need, it can lead to pain and even like damage over time. But a good lumbar support, it helps alleviate that pressure and it keeps your spine aligned, which is so important.
Yeah, so it's like you're giving those discs a little break, finally.
Exactly.
They also talk about screen setup, which is something I'm always messing with.
Oh, yeah.
Monitor at eye level, arm's length away. But I thought it was interesting how much they emphasized keyboard and mouse placement.
Yeah, that's a good point. They're really big on making sure you keep your keyboard and mouse close so your elbows are bent at like a 90-degree angle. It's a small detail, but it can make a huge difference for your wrists and forearms. You'll be much less strained.
Yeah. We can't forget about those little posture cues. It's so easy to slip into bad habits when you're, focused on work.
Oh, absolutely. Like, they talk about simple things like uncrossing your legs and making sure your feet are flat on the floor.
Yeah.
Just bringing that awareness to those tiny little habits that can, turn into big problems later on.
So true. Now, even with the perfect workspace setup, we all know sitting for hours just isn't ideal.
Right.
So where do we go from there?
Movement is key. This podcast gets super practical in this part. They actually suggest setting timers to remind yourself to change positions or stretch every 30 to 60 minutes.
Okay, so it's not just about standing up every hour.
Nope.
It's about being more dynamic.
Exactly. Like even taking phone calls while walking or having walking meetings if you can.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And they give you some really specific stretches you can do right at your desk, too.
Things like neck circles, shoulder rolls, even a seated spinal twist.
Wait, a seated spinal twist. Tell me more about that one.
Okay, so it's a great way to improve your spinal mobility and reduce stiffness. You basically just sit up straight, put one hand on your opposite thigh, and then gently twist your upper body. Helps to counteract all that hunched over posture we get from sitting all the time.
All right, so we've got our workspace optimized. We're taking those movement breaks. What's the next level?
Well, they actually go beyond just basic stretches and introduce the idea of targeted mobility exercises. So these are exercises that are specifically for areas that tend to get really tight from all that sitting, like your hip flexors.
Oh, the hip flexors. Why do those muscles always seem to be a problem for desk workers?
Well, think about it. When you're sitting, your hip flexors are shortened for hours on end. And over time, that can lead to so much tightness and pain in your hips, lower back, even your hamstrings. Stretching those hip flexors regularly can make a world of difference.
Okay, so it's like giving those hip flexors a chance to, actually flex a little bit. What other targeted exercises do they suggest?
They're big fans of the cat-cow stretch, which might sound a little, yoga-y.
I was going to say, it does kind of make me think of a yoga studio.
Yeah, but trust me, it's good for everyone.
So how does that actually help, this cat-cow thing?
It's great for mobilizing your spine. It improves your flexibility. It even helps you breathe better. You're basically going from like an arched back to a rounded back.
Yeah.
And it just really helps to loosen up those stiff muscles and joints.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What else is on their list of, like, targeted stretches?
They also mentioned the thoracic extension stretch, which might sound a little intimidating, but it's actually pretty easy.
Thoracic extension. That doesn't exactly roll off the tongue.
I know, right?
So break it down for me. What is it and why is it important?
All right, so imagine you're sitting up tall in a chair, and then you gently arch your upper back like a cat stretching.
Okay, yeah, I can picture that.
Yeah.
But how does that help with the whole desk job thing?
Well, it's really important for counteracting that rounded shoulder posture that we all get from being hunched over our computers. It opens up your chest, it improves your upper back mobility, and it can even help you breathe better.
Better breathing.
Okay.
I'm sold.
And they also recommend something that seems really basic, but it's incredibly effective, and that's ankle pumps.
Ankle pumps?
Yeah.
That seems almost too simple.
I know, right? But it's all about improving the circulation in your lower legs, which is so important when you're sitting all the time. Think of it as a way to, like, combat that sluggish feeling you get in your legs at the end of the day.
Okay, so it's like giving those ankles a little mini workout throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
I can get behind that.
Yeah, it's great.
So it seems like we've covered a lot here.
Yeah.
We've got workspace optimization, movement breaks, those targeted mobility exercises. You feeling more limber already?
I know, right? It's amazing how much of a difference these little things can make.
I'm already feeling more energized just talking about it.
Me too. It's a good reminder to, like, get up and move.
Yeah, for sure. But wait, there's more? They don't stop at stretching. This podcast, they actually talk about strengthening certain muscles to help support good posture.
Makes sense, right? Like, when you sit for so long, it can weaken certain muscles, especially the ones that help you, stay upright.
So we're not talking about like squeezing in a full workout at your desk.
No.
It's more about adding in some exercises to your routine to like balance things out a bit. What kind of exercises are we talking about here?
Well, they start off with, the classic glute bridges.
Glute bridges. Those are pretty common though. What makes them so special, like in this context?
It's the connection between strong glutes and a healthy back. Because when your glute muscles are weak, it can lead to like anterior pelvic tilt, where your pelvis tips forward, and that puts so much extra stress on your lower back.
Oh, so strong glutes equal a happy back. Okay, got it. What other exercises are they recommending?
They also talk about planks, which are really good for strengthening your core.
Planks are pretty standard though. Are there like any pro tips for making them more effective?
The real key with planks is to really focus on engaging your core the whole time. Like, it's not just about holding the position, it's about that active engagement. Think of like drawing your belly button in towards your spine and squeezing those glutes.
Ah, so it's more about the internal stuff than just like holding the pose.
Yeah.
Got it. What else is on their list of posture strengthening exercises?
Okay, they recommend an exercise that might be new to some people, face pulls.
Face pulls. I've heard of those, but I'm not sure I've ever actually tried one. What do you do?
You can use a resistance band or a cable machine. You basically pull the band towards your face, keeping your elbows up high, and you really want to squeeze your shoulder blades together. It's great for strengthening the muscles in your upper back that help to pull your shoulders back and keep you upright.
So it's kind of like a counter movement to all that, hunching forward that we do at our desks.
Exactly, and it's so important, especially with how much time we all spend leaning forward.
All right, so we've covered a lot of exercises here. My mind is spinning with all these movement possibilities, but before we wrap this section up, they also go into something that I think a lot of people forget about when it comes to pain relief, and that's the lifestyle piece.
Totally. They talk a lot about staying hydrated and the impact it has on your energy levels throughout the day.
Right, because it's not just about, like, chugging water so you're not thirsty. Right.
No, it's more than that. Staying hydrated is crucial for your joints because if you're dehydrated, they can get really stiff and achy. But when you're properly hydrated, it's like you're keeping them lubricated and moving smoothly.
Water, nature's joint lubricant. I like it. Now, what about those energy slumps that we all tend to get after sitting for so long?
Well, they talk about how when your energy crashes, it's even harder to like motivate yourself to move and stretch. But they offer a solution. They're big on eating balanced meals throughout the day to kind of help maintain your energy and prevent those big dips.
So instead of reaching for like a sugary snack or another cup of coffee when you hit that 3 p.m. slump,
They suggest focusing on more nutrient-dense things like, fruits, veggies, nuts, seeds. Those types of foods can give you more sustained energy and you'll feel better overall.
okay, that's good advice.
Yeah.
So to recap, we've talked about optimizing your workspace, getting those movement breaks in, adding those targeted mobility exercises, strengthening your posture muscles, and fueling your body with the right foods, and of course, hydration. That's a lot. But I think the main thing here is to just start small and be consistent, right?
Absolutely. You don't have to be perfect from the start. Just pick one or two things from each section and slowly add them to your routine.
Yeah, make those little changes over time. And speaking of challenges, at the end of this episode, they actually give their listeners a challenge.
They encourage everyone to take like 5 minutes during their next break to do a quick mobility routine.
A 5-minute mobility challenge. Okay,
Yeah.
I like it. What do they actually suggest for this little routine?
They recommend starting with the cat-cow stretch to get the spine moving, then add in a hip flexor stretch to target those tight hips, and then finish it off with some shoulder rolls to loosen up the shoulders.
That's doable, even for the busiest people, right?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, for sure.
I think what's so interesting about this whole episode is that it's about so much more than just relieving pain. It's really about understanding how our bodies are actually designed to move.
Totally. We weren't meant to sit for hours. Our bodies crave movement. And when we don't move, that's when we get uncomfortable and we feel that pain.
So it's like our desk jobs are kind of fighting our natural instincts.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to be proactive and start adding those strategies into our lives. It's about working with our bodies, not against them.
That's such a great point. It's not about like forcing ourselves into weird positions or doing these crazy workouts. It's about finding those small, manageable ways to move our bodies,
Yeah.
and keep them happy.
And the cool thing is that when you make those small changes, it has this ripple effect on your whole well-being.
It's not just about pain relief. It's about feeling more energetic, more focused, just more alive.
Totally. Like when you move, you increase your blood flow, your mood gets better, even your brain works better. It's a win-win.
Okay, I'm sold. We got to move more. But I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is that knowing stuff is only useful if we actually do something with it, right?
So this raises a big question for you. What are you going to do differently today based on what we've talked about?
That is a good question. I'm going to be much more mindful of taking those movement breaks and those ankle pumps. Oh yeah, those are getting added to my routine. What about you?
I think I'm going to make more of an effort to schedule walking meetings. And maybe try that seated spinal twist during my next conference call.
Love it. All right, so to wrap things up, let's leave our listeners with one final thought.
I think this episode really highlights how we kind of like put exercise in a box. Like it's a separate thing we do, right? Outside work, at the gym, a scheduled workout. But what if we thought about movement as something that needs to be like woven into our whole day, especially since we're sitting for so much of it?
It's like we totally forget that our bodies were made to move.
Yeah.
And they're always sending us signals.
Oh, for sure. Those aches, the pains, that stiffness. It's our body's way of being like, hello, something's got to change here. Remember how much I love to move.
And it's so easy to ignore those little whispers, right? When you're in the middle of your workday and everything's crazy.
Totally.
But what if we actually started listening?
Yeah, I think the more we pay attention to those signals and we respond by moving, our bodies will feel so much better. It's like this awesome cycle of, awareness and action.
I love that. It's not about like forcing your body to do things. It's about like working with it, honoring that need to move. So for those listening who are like, all right, I'm ready to make a change, what's a good place to start?
I mean, it doesn't have to be anything huge, right? Even setting a timer to remind yourself to stand up every hour or adding in a few stretches throughout the day.
Even something small like taking a walk at lunch instead of just scrolling on your phone can make a difference.
Oh yeah, for sure. All those little bits of movement really add up. And the coolest thing is the more you move, the more you'll want to move. It's kind of contagious.
So let's leave everyone with this.
This deep dive was all about giving you the knowledge and the tools to deal with that desk job pain. But the real magic happens when you take what you've learned and you actually put it into practice.
Your body is your home, right? Treat it with care, move it, nourish it, listen to what it's telling you.
And I think you'll be shocked at how much stronger and more flexible you feel. You'll have so much more energy.
That wraps up our deep dive on desk job pain relief. We hope you've learned something new and, even better, that you're feeling inspired to move that body and feel amazing. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.